Hello, welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today we're talking about spiritual struggles and challenges and what the point of them are. Before I get started, we're going with our housekeeping right away. If you need me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session, you can find me at therisingmoon.com exclusively. That's the only way to book me. I will never approach you in DMs or any other messages trying to sell you a reading. But all tarot readers have someone impersonating them. Usually they'll be working through WhatsApp. You've probably heard me give this speech before. I have a Patreon where there's weekly and monthly spiritual advice. And then I also have a YouTube channel where the video versions of these episodes go up, and that's Chromecast at the Rising Moon on YouTube. And at the Rising Moon is all one word on the YouTube channel title. Let's get going today with talking about the point of our challenges and our struggles, because one of the most frustrating things about a spiritual journey is that in order to heal our inner worlds, in order to confront our shadow side and the parts of ourselves that we're trying to resolve, we will be brought struggles and challenges. Because our inner peace, our spiritual connection cannot rely on the external world being in perfect and flowing shape and everything is lovely and you're living in this beautiful reality. The fact of the matter is that there's a lot of power struggles going on throughout the world, that some of us live in places that are very conflicted. I'm in the United States. It's November 6th while I'm filming this. Woke up to what was for me kind of surprising election result. I, of course, have been backing Harris. I think she would have been a great president. But what I did learn 8 years ago is that we can survive anything. We can overcome anything. That it's even a disappointing results can yield good and new and powerful things. I'm a far healthier person than I was 8 years ago. It was one of the things that taught me it was time for me to stand up, step forward, and start speaking my mind. Because no matter win, lose, or draw, I wanted to make sure that I was okay with who I was in these challenging times. And that's really what all of us have to do during our challenges, is it helps us find who we authentically are. And the only way to be spiritually enlightened and spiritually in alignment is to be your authentic self, not the part of yourself that was formed in trauma, which is our shadow side. One of the things I'm always trying to help the people that, because I do a form of life coaching where I can look into their past with tarot, I can look into the future as well. But I find it much more productive to look into the past because that contains the answers for the things that got poured into our foundation, essentially, that maybe don't serve us. And one of the best things about the challenges that are brought to us is it helps us confront the parts of ourselves that are not an authentic part of us. I have an anxiety disorder because I have so much trauma in my background. If it's just your first time listening to me, surprise. There is an ACE score, and oh my goodness, do I ever hit every single point on it. I think mine is 10. But it would be a 9 normally, but the problem is that they didn't include one thing that happened to me, which is sudden and traumatic deaths over and over. I had multiples of those. I'm okay, and it's because I undertook a lot of healing within, understanding of self, understanding of the psychological basis of what forms a human being. And as I got older, I was able to look back and understand, well, all the things that maybe I don't like so much about myself are actually known results of trauma. And it turns out in the nature versus nurture thing that I was very much a product of my nurturing, but that my nature pulled through in the end and guided me towards being the person that I wanted to be, to find how to be calm and how to be collected and how to be in the middle of a crisis, how to find who I really wanted to be rather than being at the whim of my fears. I found a way to tap into the dedication and the strength that we all have available to us when we are in alignment with our highest self. So the point of our challenge is, because everybody says this thing, everything happens for a reason. Oh my God, could that not be less true? It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. What is true is that there is a lesson in everything that happens. So because we're at the whim of other people's bad choices, because free will and fate coexist, and I will explain that in just a moment, because free will and fate coexist, we are sometimes at the whim of other people's choices, like what just happened. Now, because I come from a part of the country where there are a lot of people who are deeply conservative and deeply in the red, I know that we are mostly who we are programmed to be. In the nurturing aspect, that happens to other people as well. We mostly believe what we were brought up to believe. Now, am I an outlier in that? Of course I am, but that's because nobody brought me up. Even for Gen X, I had almost no adult supervision or influence in my life. And thank goodness I was attracted to stories of good guys and good things. Um, it helped form who I was. In the end result, we have control over who we wish to be. And we will find out who we really are when we are challenged. And that's the point of our challenges. One of the things that I've faced as a challenge over and over again, and I see it over and over again in other trauma survivors, is they have trouble with basically volcanic reactions to almost everything. If they cry, they get super upset. If they're happy, they're really, really happy. If they're angry, they're really, really angry, because they work so much with emotional repression. Because sometimes the only way to get through traumatic circumstances is through emotional numbing, where you just kind of put on a back burner or don't feel what you're feeling because you're in survival mode. It is why there's so much addiction present in trauma survivors, because addiction is not just a disease, sometimes it is a trauma response. And things like substance abuse disorder or poor forms of escapism can form in people who have been badly traumatized. It's never a contest. We only have the experience that we have. When I talk about how much trauma I've been through, I've also had incredibly good experiences. I loved reading. I actually had a beautiful inner world. I felt very connected to something beyond me from the time I was a child. There were saving graces. And I feel very lucky in that. And it does depend how we look at our lives. How we look at our lives determines how we interact with our world, how we feel about our life. And for a lot of us, because like if you're listening to me, a frequent co-host here is a gay polyamorous man, and people of color on my podcast all the time. I could not make it clearer that I try to be an ally to those who have been historically denied power. Because I have so many markers of privilege, I look like a very, very white person indeed. I don't truly know about some of my lineage on my father's side, stretching back, but I know that the only person that I have some questions about is my great, great, great grandmother. So it goes a way, way back. And I've never looked into it with a DNA test because I don't need that influence in my life. It has not really carved my path. Every now and then I set off somebody else's other meter simply because I have dark hair and dark eyes, but incredibly fair skin. And sometimes people will kind of give me a "you're not from Kansas" kind of look, and that is accurate. I am, in fact, not from Kansas. But I don't know what else comprises me. But I do know that we get to choose who we're going to be in any situation. And for a lot of people, for women in particular, we've just suffered what can be considered kind of a crushing loss and some evidence that people will choose money over that which is right because it's the economy. That's the thing that really is supposed to spur people forward. But it's also a fear of change, of trying to go backwards to a time that is remembered, polishing over the bad things to try and get to a feeling of safety and stability. It's a false construct. But I do know that across the world, people live in difficult governmental situations and they still have a life, they still have creative pursuits, and they are still the person who is in charge of how they interact with one another. And that is ultimately what the whole idea of the divine is. I've gone into this before. If you look at the world and you're like, but there are wars and babies are starving and this is happening and the environment is collapsing, how can there be a divine presence? Because a divine presence is a personal connection. You have it within you. And then you are inspired to take the actions that you might take to interact with the world and impact the world around you in the positive ways that you can. You are your free will. You are in charge of your choices, but your fate, and this is how these two things exist, is that your soul signed up to be brought certain things, and those are your fateful occurrences. And sometimes it's going to be a marriage. Sometimes that marriage is a karmic relationship. Sometimes it will be a profession because of your calling, but not always. Remember, purpose and profession are not interchangeable terms. It's rarely things like the job you take and the place you live. It's who you are as you make those choices. Those are the fateful things. So those are the things where we have crossroads moments over and over again where we get to decide who we are going to be. And 8 years ago, I basically took to my bed like a Victorian and for like 3 days because I just could not believe what had just happened. It happened. And I have been a different and a stronger and a more and more resilient person with each passing year because I understood that ultimately, if you don't like where the world is going, it is up to you to stand up and to interact with the people around you as the version of the world that you would like to see. So even if you don't like your leadership, that does not have any impact on how you interact with your neighbors, with the people around you, whether or not you care. Whoever wins or loses an election does not determine who you are and who you will be as you move through this world. And that is your free choice in this world. That is where your free will comes in. You have the power over that. You can either go with the path of least resistance or you can stand up and find who you truly are and be your authentic self. It is said that the test of character does not lie in how we treat those we like, but rather how we treat those we do not like. Now, there is a version of that saying that, like, how we treat the powerful versus the powerless. And nope, that's not the measure of it, because it's really easy sometimes to be incredibly kind and compassionate to people with less. What is difficult is being kind and compassionate to people with whom we feel like we have absolutely nothing in common, who seem to have completely different morals and standards. Mostly they've just been taught to believe different things. In each and every moment, every time you approach a person, you have your free will, your free choice to decide who you will be. And to nothing changes, nothing grows, and nothing flourishes between anger and hate and resentment. All we can do is move forward saying, well, that means that I'm the person who brings the light. I'm the person who is in charge of every interaction that I have, and I will bring the energy to it that I can admire. And in doing so, I will become my authentic self and my spiritual self. And our challenges bring us those opportunities. It's very easy to be a person you can admire when there are no stumbling blocks in your way. It's very easy to be the person that you think you're meant to be when things are flowing smoothly. It is much harder day after day to choose who you will be despite pushback from the greater world, despite the resistance that comes along. There is the idea of surrendering to a divine flow, and everything that's happening in your life, that's where fate comes along. Fate gives you the circumstances that will allow you to make the choices to be the authentic self that you wish to be. And what if you don't? What happens? Is there a great big punishment after life where, like, you're burned in eternity? As far as I know, no. But there is a system where, like, you have to remain behind and witness things until such time as you encompass the lesson, and then you may still carry forward the karma, which is just lessons about what comes from positive behavior and what comes from negative behavior. That's basically what karma is. And it can be a really challenging one when you look around and it's like something just went really wrong and I'm going to blame all the other people. And it's not an issue of blame. It is an issue of processing and accepting the reality that is around you and then choosing who you will be regardless. And it is a difficult thing because the idea that fate only brings us small things on our personal menu that make us go, I'm going to choose this or I'm going to choose that. My fate is actually in my hands. The universe, the divine, simply brings me the opportunity to decide moment for moment, day to day, event through event, who I wish to be and who I want to be. And every single day, you have an opportunity to inhabit the energy of whatever it is you admire, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. If you want kindness and compassion, which is far more sustaining than things like money and gain, it really is. Because when you pin your happiness to always getting more and more and money and money and money, you find that it's a pretty empty construct and that there's never enough of it. And we all need it to survive. Don't get me wrong. It is actually easier to be happy when you don't have a wolf at your door, when you're not concerned about your medical bills. It is a lot happier. The world we are building will currently make a lot of those situations worse. And so it falls to us to make sure that we treat each other with the kindness, with the compassion, with the ability to rise above our power structures and the things that try and tell us what to think, to be the people that we wish to be the divine souls that we wish to inhabit, to pursue a spiritual journey. And I woke up this morning with a lot of questions. It's like, why in the world wouldn't my cards have told? Because my cards actually were accurate. It's just that I thought it was going in a different direction. It was like, well, it's going to be a pretty definitive sort of situation, and there's going to be some pushback on the other side. But I had it all in the other direction, and that's called the hopes and fears scenario. We all want what we want, but when we don't get what we want, we find out who we are. And it really is just that simple. When we're not getting what we want, we find out who we are. Will we blame others? Will we accept the responsibility for ourselves? Will we inhabit who we wish to be? Will we continue to be jealous of what other people have? Or will we accept that what we have is what's meant for us and we can do whatever we wish to with it? Will we inhabit kindness and generosity even when we are surrounded by fear and greed? The choice is up to you. That is your free will. And your fate is always in your hands through your choices. But that's how those two things coexist. Not absolutely everything that happens for a reason, but absolutely everything has a lesson in it about who you wish to be. And that ultimately you are in charge of who you are from moment to moment. If you're ruled by fear, there are ways to heal that. There are sound recordings. I give them to my clients all the time. I provide free resources. I can do so because of YouTube. A lot of people put out some good stuff for people who don't have enough, but still need to heal. There are so many things you can work on in your inner dialogue, in your self-love, in your ability to find who you wish to be. And you will find yourself becoming stronger and stronger when you are the version of yourself whose choices you admire. And that is how fate and free will kind of team up to give us the opportunity to inhabit an energy of self admiration that is not ego based, but rather being able to admire that, hey, you are who you say you are, even when things are tough. And we're all facing that right this very moment. We're going to talk a little bit about fate as well, because I actually recorded a version of this podcast months ago with my friend Rebecca Mazer. There was a small problem with the audio and I couldn't use it. And I'd been waiting and waiting and figuring out, well, what should I do? What should I do? When should I do that again? Who should I ask back on that? I'd asked my friend Rachel Garrett to come back for a talk about fate versus free will. And all of this kind of coincided today to be like, okay, I understand why those things haven't been working out, because it's time to talk about them. The idea that divine timing, perfect timing, does not exist on a clock or a calendar, but rather in a set of circumstances. And I want you to all understand that you are facing a time where you will figure out who you are when you're not looking to your leaders to tell you who to be. Who are you? Who are you in the moment to moment? Do you want to choose to be a person who is part of a solution, or do you want to choose to be part of a continuing problem? And no matter who carries a title of president, no matter who is your senator, no matter who are your representatives, no matter where you are in the world, you actually have power over who you will be. Freedom always lies within. Freedom lies within our ability to be strong, regardless of external sources. If we crumble, if we are a house of cards under pressure, then we will not achieve who we are meant to be. And it is a lovely idea that we can manifest these beautiful and abundant and blissful lives. But what if abundance is actually a plethora of opportunities to find who you will be the most peaceful and happiest version of as yourself? Because it's right here and it's right now in a challenging time. It is genuinely easy. It is genuinely easy to be the version of yourself you want to be when you got the relationship you want, you have all the money you want, you have the job you want, you have the stuff you want. Not a lot of challenges, and then without anything pushing back on you, without the exertion of the force of the resistance that always faces us all as we try to inhabit a new and a changed being. Without that, it is easy to inhabit the highest ideals that we have. It is very difficult, in fact, indeed, to inhabit our highest ideals when things have gone wrong. And for a lot of us, it feels like things have gone wrong because, particularly women, now I'm older and I do not need to worry about reproductive rights at this particular point in my life. But I know that there are many, many young women who have seen their bodily autonomy revoked through law. It may not stop there. I was born into a world where women could not open their own credit card statements. They couldn't get a mortgage without a man. It changed when I was a very, very small person. Um, and I hope that it doesn't entirely change back before I leave this earth. But if it does, it has not had any true impact on who I am as a person. Be willing to see hypocrisy around you. Be willing to see hypocrisy. Don't go along with what power structures are trying to tell you to think about one another. No matter the fact of the matter is that we can believe different things but still trying to be inhabiting decency as we understand it. And that perspective changes how we see our position. There's a lot of people who think they've done the right thing because they believe something different, because that's where they feel they've been guided. But most of the time, it's where they've been led. And a lot of people have difficulty kind of ascertaining the difference between being guided and being led. A guidance comes from within, your own unique, eternal, divine soul. will guide you towards who you wish to be, the things you need to confront, the things you need to change, the things you need to heal. There's been a lot of things I've had to change about myself. I was so damaged by trauma, I was barely a functional person. And I used to have a lot of shame around that until I started looking back and realizing that like every like tried and true professional with a lot of background in trauma would look at my background and go, "Oh my God, there's no way you're okay." And I wasn't. And I started to understand that I'd actually done exceptionally well for somebody with that much trauma. And so it reframed how I was approaching my existence, not as a failure, but as a success. It just took a long time because I was dealing with a lot of damage. Wherever you are, you can start again and reapproach whatever challenge you're facing as a call to confront what is within. Because it is your choice to be fearful and it is your choice to be brave. It is your choice to be kind or it is your choice to be grasping. Try to think of others, no matter who is sitting in a presidential office. Try to be kind to one another. No matter what else is going on around you, you will feel better every single second of your day in your entire life if you become a person that you genuinely, genuinely admire and like because you like the way you react to things. And I did not like the results of this election, but what I did like was that there's not even one part of me that's afraid. It's like, okay, fine, that's the battle then. Bring it. Give me my sword. Where's my shield? Let's get going. That's what we have to be to overcome our obstacles. And that is the point of our challenges. They strengthen us. They give us the ability to really be on our own side because we get to know who we are through adversity. And you can find a person that you really, really admire through adversity. You can also find that in every single moment, you have a choice to make in how you are going to interact with another. Even if they're saying something to you that is making your blood boil. Even if right now somebody is gloating because they got the result that they wanted and you didn't. Just let it go. Let it go and be who you wish to be every single moment of every day, not reserving your good treatment for those you are in agreement with, because that's not actually authentic. If you cannot extend the same amount of courtesy and kindness to somebody who is part of what you perceive to be a problem, then I hate to tell you this, but through the act of hating, we become the thing that we hate. Stop judging each other so unkindly and try to be as kind as you can be moving forward. I don't know what's coming up in the power structures of the world. It's not really supposed to be my realm. Mine is the personal and the spiritual. And here's what I know for certain. If you are willing to look at who you are, to see what I'm trying to heal, not disliking it, understanding that just like I finally had to understand that it's like, okay, I have so many markers of that emotional orphaning. I have so many markers of just extreme trauma having stunted and damaged and mangled my psychological well being that I really could get caught in that. Why'd all that happen to me? It's like, but I also came here with the gifts to understand the information, to seek it out at the right times, to have really good timing on finding the information that I would need to personally take a hammer and hammer out every single one of those dents, to unmangle every single mangled part of me so that I could become the strongest and the most self-directed version of myself. And when you have that, when you have self-respect, then you are successful and you are happy because you know who you are and you are flexible with the needs of the moment, but you have a core within that you can always find your ability to recharge through your own personal connection to, I feel guided, I feel right, I feel stronger. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult because we live in a world that really, really prizes material things. Now, there's a reason for that. You know, the more they produce, the more they sell. That sustains an economy. None of it is altruistic. And it's all a very, very empty construct. As somebody who has, if you have not been listening for long, oh my goodness, like one of my first memories is being in Scotland with my mother and my half brother. My mother was crying, watching a television screen, and what I did not understand, because all I could see was a bunch of water, it was black and white TV with roofs sticking out of the top of it, houses sticking out of the top of it. And I kept asking her what was wrong. And it was where we lived. She was watching a video of the area that I lived in being flooded and her home being completely destroyed. It took me a long time as an adult to realize, wow, that must have been really hard on my rather fragile parents. No wonder they went psychotically deranged after that, because they did. And then there was a fire as well, and then there were deaths, and then there's just a lot, and then on top of that, there was verbal abuse, there was physical abuse, there was sexual abuse, I was bullied. I was so badly neglected that I start laughing just going, "Oh my god, if it had been a different time, I would have been pulled out by CPS, I'm 100% time positive." But I wasn't because it was a different time. And I look at all of those challenges and understand that I got so fortunate that I was distracted by my internal world, that I was never very interested in joining what other people thought and did. And so I've always been a very independent thinker. And so I had a leg up on connecting to my authentic and divine self because I was always most connected within understanding my own. And it was partially through a ton of isolation, but it helped me. And that I can look at my circumstances for also giving me all of the building blocks, a love of reading, a love of information, being from a family of teachers. All of those things also brought me the ingredients I needed to reassemble myself in a strong and a healthy and a happier manner. There's always two ways to look at things. And I woke up this morning very disappointed because I was hopeful that I was going to see the first woman president. I like her a lot. I don't love any politicians. I don't. Like, it's a power structure. Everything gets corrupted. The machinery of our government moves so slowly. It doesn't really get a lot done. There's a lot. We should have term limits. We should have campaign finance rules that we don't have. We need a rehaul and we need a re-examining very deeply to have a functional and a fair system and a truly democratic one. But that may not be coming. And I looked at the results not for how am I disappointed, which is traditionally very difficult for trauma survivors who really struggle with simply wanting to go on sometimes because their lives have been so tough and so difficult and so painful that disappointment can absolutely crush. And even though it was a disappointing result, I was not disappointed. I was just like, okay, so it's going to be a different path. It's a different battle. It's a different stay on course with this no matter what comes with it, and be who you want to be, and then you will always have your own respect and you will be happier and you will be more connected and you'll be more peaceful. When you try to inhabit the shapes, the forms, the identities that a society tells you to inhabit, which is all about making money in this particular world, you have a tendency to lose sight of who you are really and truly meant to be. You can never conform and find your authentic self. We have different spiritual leaders and spiritual teachers who have taught us the building blocks of how to find that person. And it lies in kindness and compassion and the ability to forgive. Forgiveness is a really tough one, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I had something startling happen in it. Over and over again, I've said, please, they put too much pressure on people who are actively abused or traumatized to forgive your abuser, forgive your abuser. You'll never heal until you forgive. It is the opposite way around. When you heal, you find the ability to forgive. But I did have something fairly startling happen a few months ago. I remembered something having to do with my ex-husband. And even in the memory, afterwards, I was like, "Ugh, I just hate that guy." And I heard myself think it and was appalled. It's like, okay, it's just ultimately just a breakup. You don't have to hold resentment towards this person for the rest of time, even though he, methodically and determinedly did terrible things to you. It was not It's not something to hang on to for the rest of time. And I knew I was healed because I was able to confront that feeling and say, okay, that is not who I want to be. And I just kind of let it go. And it's not like I get up every day and wish the dude well or something, but I can honestly say that only happened that one time. And it shocked me enough to go, oh, wait, that's not okay for anybody. I don't care who it is or what they've done. The Gandhi, who's a very problematic figure, really problematic figure, did nonetheless say some wise things. Like, people who are flawed can still have a valuable contribution. And one of the things he said is that hatred is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And that is absolutely true. And it's important to remember this here as well, because the micro example that I'm using with realizing, oh, I have such animosity towards this person, but I'm healed enough that I recognize it as that's just bad for me. Why would I do that? And I did let it go, and I did try to forgive it. And will I ever truly forgive the things done? Not exactly. but I don't need to because they don't have an impact on me. And I can have some gratitude, which is a weird concept, but I can have some gratitude for the ways they made me confront some things that I needed to heal. And like also the fact that like I got married because I was seeking security and I didn't like ever think of myself as a person who fell romantically in love. And that was something to learn about as well. It's like, well, I'm not going to have any more relationships for security. So what would I have them for? And I have yet to meet or discover someone, and I don't look because I have very rarefied interests, that I would want to spend any significant time around because relationships really ought to be about compatibility, companionship, and love. And if you're having them for security, then if they're kind of an emotionally void experience, as mine was, then maybe the answer was in the flawed thesis at the start of it, which is that I would have really done much better to heal myself and to be okay and not have a relationship for the purposes of security. But I did what I did, and I learned what I learned, and I learned how to forgive, and I learned how to let it go. And right now, absolutely everybody who is in the same boat that I am and where you're like, "Oh my gosh, why would you ever do this?" It's so unfair to women, to people of color, to any marginalized groups. I just can't even bear to think about what they're gonna do to undocumented people. I just can't. It's a battle that we will fight as the need arises, and that's really kind of the gig with absolutely everything. Is that just assume that you will have the strength to know what to do, in the time and the moment and the place. But to try and forgive the people around you who may have contributed to bringing you more spiritual challenges, because that's what happened with my ex-husband. That is what happened with my ex-husband. Ultimately, is it about forgiving him? No, it was more about forgiving the universe. Being like, I needed that challenge. I needed that lesson. I needed this to have that happen so I would take a look at something I didn't want to see. Because I wanted safety and security so much, I had long fallen into a false construct of it, which is what we're doing right now with the idea that capitalism will actually ever make somebody safe. It only just makes a very tiny handful of people wealthier and wealthier. And things get worse and worse and worse for the people below that wealth line. And sooner or later, it blows up because that's history and we repeat historical cycles. And in fact, part of what's going on with our presidential elections is we're repeating a cycle. Look about 100 years ago, and you'll see the cycle repeating. And does that mean we're doomed? No. Guess what? With the whole fate free will, that's the fate. Cycles repeat, fate. The free will is will we choose differently? And that is within your hands. You have the power. You are powerful. You are powerful. Choose to be who you would admire, even to those that you may not like or agree with, even if you think they're horrendous human beings. No one has ever been shamed, blamed, or screamed into meaningful change. Nobody listens when people are shouting at each other. Walk forward kindly. And even if other people are gloating, just let it go and to know that save your energy for the battles you can win, but that shouting into the wind means you will never be heard. It is a difficult life, and it is a rewarding one. And when we talk about the idea of a divine presence, people get upset and think that it's not there because we don't have a better world. It's like, but we built this. We did. We did it. It's on us. That means it's on us to try and fix it. And the point of our challenges is it will take a spotlight and shine it onto the things inside of yourself that you need to heal. If your experience today has been frustration and anger or rage or despair, these are all the things that you're being asked to confront, all of the parts of you that are like, hey, listen, if you work with that, you can overcome it and find the best version of yourself you can be. Because our best versions are never greedy, they are never wrathful, they are never unkind. They aren't. Our best versions inhabit the best, kindest, most compassionate energy that we can find. And it can be a little bit daunting because, there's things coming into power. The far right does not like people like me. And I'm aware of that. But I was aware of that like 8 years ago when I started making a lot of changes in my life that would eventually lead me to being like, okay, well, I'm going to be who I say I am in this daunting and frightening world. And that is all we can ever do. And it's hard. I do spirit mediumship for some people. I just did it the other day. Like I never advertise it. People can't like book me for a spirit guide reading, but half the time I'm like, when it happens, it's one of my clients or somebody who's booked me, and they ask me for that, and I do it. And it's always because I only deliver messages that are for karmic reasons. I don't actually try and help people maintain relationships with people beyond. You will feel them, you will know them, they become infinite. You are never truly alone. And what we go towards as this life fades from us is an expansive and a beautiful and a powerful and a joined and a collective and a brilliant experience. But when we are here, we face our challenges and we find our individual power for this particular consciousness. And we live in challenging times. But there is a point to our challenges within a spiritual journey. Manifesting is always like, get the life you want, have everything be easy, that we're all here for different purposes. I'm not denigrating that as an experience, but if you're here, if you're listening, if you're interested in spiritual awakening and finding your spiritual self and joining with your highest self, you signed up for some challenge. You did it because that's how we grow. We learn the most about ourselves under pressure, including what we need to heal. And what I learned today is that I'm healed because I had a completely different reaction. It was not a crushing defeat, it was rather, "Okay, so plan B then." Where we keep fighting even if we don't have all the power yet, and we keep going for a better day that will someday come if we don't give up. And here's why I say that good and evil, and do good and evil exist? Yes, they do. They do exist. It is not just a social construct, it is not just a matter of perspective, it is wrong to inflict harm on others. We are really meant to live by a do unto others energy because we are all one. So good and evil does actually exist in my belief system. We have the power to simply choose to inhabit that which is good. And when we do that, things only go wrong for so long. This is a temporary existence, but we can learn lessons that will help elevate us into something powerful and beautiful, and it will allow you to manifest the life that you want. But you cannot manifest the life you want until you're healed. And what I found today is that I'm healed because I'm not I I have very balanced emotions. I have CPTSD, which is the same form of post-traumatic stress disorder that war veterans have a tendency to encompass, which is not to in any way denigrate or compare myself to a soldier, but I grew up in a household where I mean, I probably was 6 days old before my parents probably had a bloody, screaming fight because I can remember lots of them. They're ones that I've heard described to me. What I know is that I was around reactionary, explosive people. So, from my little tiny perspective, I grew up with bombs going off around me. And now I have found that even tremendous seismic shakes do not in any way cause me to be flustered, cause me to be triggered, cause me to be upset. I feel the sadness, the anger, the disappointment, but also the, okay, well, now I know what I need to do going forward. It's not going to get easier right now. It's going to be, okay, I had to heal to inhabit this person because there's more challenges with it. We want ease. But when we're really in a flowing energy, the ease exists within, it does not need to exist without. When you find peace within, you are the most powerful version of yourself that you can be. No matter who you backed in this election, please try not to view it as a win or a loss, but rather as a set of circumstances that can call upon you to be the best version of yourself, regardless of which camp you started out in. And if your base setting is to blame, to shame, to sneer at, or to insult, understand that will perpetuate an energy because it's contributing to what is already there. You have the power right now to begin manifesting a completely different way of life simply by letting go of the things that you cannot change. What really came to my mind this morning was the serenity prayer, which is from, I'm not actually an addict in recovery. I am codependent, which is a form of addiction, but it's weird. I have it at a compulsive level. I'm able to stop doing the things that aren't good for me easily enough. And then I don't really think about them any longer. So it seems to be the very slight difference between reaching for toxic things to try and make myself feel better, which is what compulsion stuff do. And the idea of like simply not having any control over things. But the serenity prayer is about having the wisdom to change the things that you can, and the courage to change the things that you can, and the wisdom to accept the things that you cannot. And right now, there is no way to change an outcome that you don't like when it is an exterior thing, but you can change how you feel about it. You can change how you approach it. You can change how you approach your challenges. Every now and then, because I do draws every day and they do tell me, like what's likely to come up. And when I see challenge cards now, it's like, okay, over and over again, What the universe is showing me is like, wow, you fixed yourself. You're all better. That's an amazing gift. It might have come to me through difficult circumstances, but I never would have known it if I hadn't faced those difficult circumstances and had a completely different reaction. There is within almost everything that happens the ability to learn a lesson that even if a lesson and a blessing are not synonymous terms, because there are some things that happen which it offends me when people say that there's a blessing in absolutely everything. No, actually there's not. I mean, there's not. Sometimes it's just so much pain and you may be able to heal and you may discover strength within yourself, but if, like, the lesson was your 3-year-old child had to die or something, please stop telling people that's a blessing. It's an opportunity to learn new things about themselves through the transformation that loss can bring about in our lives, which can include healing and becoming stronger and knowing nothing can take us out. But that's not a blessing so much as it is the lesson of there is nothing that can truly destroy us except each other. And then sometimes the frailty of human existence with disease and a couple of other things. But we have a lot of power over that. And we, as a group of human beings, have so much power simply to decide to function independently of whatever power structures are there. So, no matter how much divisive energy a political structure is being like, you hate that person who doesn't vote like you, and I'm a registered independent. I literally don't have the Republican or Democrat thing going on at all. Nobody gets to tell me what to think. No matter what they're trying to tell you to think about one another, approach everything from nothing gets better if I'm just angry all the time. So I'm just going to let this one go. And in the moment to moment, I'm going to inhabit the person that I wish to be. And as more and more of us do that, then we change the world. And it does not have to have a title or an election with it. The world can change today if you simply start valuing the things that have true value in them. Because stuff can go away. It can be swept away in floods, it can be burned away in fires. Money, also, we have a false construct around that. We're all one terrible computer virus away from bankruptcy, and we don't like to talk about it very much, but it's actually true. There are so many things that can destroy our exterior security, our exterior constructs. But when you build a strong interior construct, nothing can take that out. And you will feel better and you will feel happier and you will feel more powerful when you find that person. That's the point of our struggles and our challenges. So, right now, I just wanted to do, and it all worked out the way it was supposed to. If you needed some reassurance this week that there is still hope, there is always hope. There is always hope because leadership does not actually determine what the people under those leaders do if we decide to do differently. And that's what we have to do. We have to decide to do differently. We have to decide that we will care about and look after one another because our governmental structures are so just interested in greed and profit. And we see where it's leading. It's destroying everything around us, including our ability to have compassion for one another. It has created a housing crisis. It has created a food scarcity mindset where 1 in 4 households in California will suffer from food insecurity all the time because of rising costs. We have power over that. We do. We can be kind to one another, we can help one another, and we can do that regardless of who bears what political title. Be who you are meant to be in this world. Do not be at the whim of the external world. Find the strength of your internal world, and you will find your authentic self, and then you will find your ability to manifest. But often our ability to manifest is curtailed until we're healed. And circling back to that forgiveness thing, when you're healed, forgiveness becomes a decision rather than a battle. And that's what happened. When I just had this memory of my ex-husband doing something that it was like he had a difficult personality. I'm sure he could say the same thing about me sometimes. He had a difficult personality. And I was remembering something and just that feeling of irritation. And then understanding it's like, that's gone. It's over. I'm fine. I have a really interesting life. I have a magical connection that I have evidence of every single day. Everything worked out well for me. It worked out for the best, even though it was the worst thing I ever went through at the particular time. And when I say stuff, please, like, that was the worst thing. There's just so many things. It's like, well, that really stood out. It was because I put all of the love that I could feel for something into another person rather than into my personal journey and my connection to something beyond. And I can never ever deny that my connection to something beyond led me to healing, to helping to other people heal. You are more than your anointed leadership in a corrupt power structure, whether it is a church, whether it is politics, whatever it might be. Within you, you have your own personal power. You have your ability to heal. Decide who you wish to be with your free choice and watch as your fate brings you the things that are better and more in alignment with your higher self. Your higher self does not exist in easy moments. Your higher self comes forth the most in the challenging times, and it gives you confidence and it gives you strength and it gives you the ability to find your compassion. We live in challenging times, but challenges teach us. And may we all be good students. This has been Logical Magic, examining esoterica, the point of our spiritual challenges, struggles, trying to inhabit more forgiveness, and a little bit on the fate free will thing, which I will probably still do another episode on fate versus free will. But because it's never explained, people are like told everything happens for a reason, everything is fate, but you have free will. It's like, well, how are those two things possible? And I will very quickly break that down again. This is an arbitrary number, completely made up. Different people have a different number. Let's say you have 7 fateful occurrences in your life, and they have to do mostly with meeting your soulmate, whether or not you will have children, your challenges around whether or not you can inhabit your ever evolving, spiritually awakened energy. Those are fateful things. And then your free will is what allows you to decide who you will be from the moment to moment. You will have tests around your patience, and can you choose patience because patience is peaceful? And the more you choose something that is good for you, the more effortless it becomes. That is the beautiful thing about our struggles, is that the more you're just like, okay, I'm facing it. It's not that bad. I'll get through it. I'll figure it out. The less your personal seas are ever tossed about by the vagaries of fate and the vagaries of the external world. Instead, you will find your calm, cool sea within, and nothing can really, really upset that because you are the person who will have control of your personal power. When we look to power structures to help guide us, we are in some way ceding our power to something else, giving it to something else. Okay, you take care of that. You be the leader. You take care of that. When our leadership lets us down, we have to turn to ourselves to lead from within and to follow the guidance of those who are helping us find our personal power, not telling us solely what to think about others around us. Every single person you encounter is a divine soul on a divine journey. And even if you don't agree with them, they are simply facing their struggles and perhaps making poor choices. Stop being unkind to one another as a base setting, and the world will get better immediately. It won't solve every problem, but part of what happened when Kamala Harris was named the presidential, and I saw it on TikTok, I saw it, people were like, I feel hope for the first time in a long time. And it's because they're looking to an external source rather than to an internal source. There will always be something trying to come along and be a spoiler. And really, your personal power resides within your personal willpower and your refusal to be bent into a different shape, to be mangled by your circumstances. I was mangled by my early circumstances, and it was my willpower, my determination, and my ability to persevere that brought me to the other side of that, where I am no longer at the whim of any trauma disorders. I have a bunch of disorders that I would term resolved at this particular point, including an anxiety disorder. When I get anxious now, I just take care of myself and I talk to myself appropriately. You can learn how to be peaceful even when the world seems to be at war. This has been Logical Magic, examining esoterica. Thank you so much for joining me. Embrace your struggles, and you will have a ever increasing pace on your journey.